I feel totally honored to be here and humbled because it's a really busy room. And I tell you one thing, this is usually me still in my robe, possibly still in bed. If I was being totally honest, I'm pretty nervous now. If I was being totally honest, I say, fuck, maybe I'm better on social media. I mean, honestly, Instagram, ace. On the stage, fuck, I don't know. I'm not going to swear that much, by the way. If I was being totally honest, I'd say, you're up for a really, really good 20 minutes. I have some really good images to show you, and actually some important stuff. So the question is, do we need to bear it all, to be honest? I'm not going to talk about my commissions. I'm not even going to talk about my story as a photographer. I'm not going to talk about how most of my work is Scottish musicians. Actually, in fact, I photographed most of them. Emma Pollock, young fathers. I even photographed Duke of Edinburgh, as you can see, and Nicola Sturgeon. Today, I really want to talk about honesty and how honesty is totally essential in creating authentic, connected, and beautiful, real images. If you lose that contact with honesty, you lose the whole connection to your image. Honesty started for me sometime in the 80s. There you go, young fathers. I remember, this is mental actually, in the after school club, me and my friend broke a window. We actually broke the window because the person who was working there tried to shut it, and we were being resistant, trying to close it. Her response was hiding in the rose bushes. And the only thing I could do was dragging her out of there, trying to admit to my crime. I did that not because I was such a good kid. I did it because I knew it felt better. I'm going to come back to that later on. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk about my work as a photographer. I'm going to focus on 3 projects that I've done. And these 3 projects, it was crucial for me to be honest, because I knew if I didn't create this project out of honesty, it would be a really quite, oh God, how should I put it? Not just an objectifying story, but also kind of pretty horrific, actually. You will understand what I mean soon. Honesty opens doors. This door was to a strip club around the corner from here, on Lothian Road. That strip club is not there anymore. I think it's a beer hall. When I look at this picture, as a photographer, it makes me think, I'm going to swear again, can I do that? Okay. It makes me think, why the fuck did she take that picture? I mean, seriously, what is the intention of that image? Why would you even do that? I mean, I can see it's a nice butt, obviously, but images like that just makes me go mad. And this is the whole thing with honesty. I was talking about the 80s, and now I'm going to go back to 2011 it was. I got commissioned by a strip club to create the exhibition. I mean, it was actually the owner had this cunning plan of having an artist coming in, creating an exhibition to get punters in during the Edinburgh Fringe, really. I mean, he was like, I don't know if his approach was that honest. It was more like, yeah, come and take pictures. And we exhibit it in August. And then we get all these people in who wouldn't usually go to a strip club. And maybe they have a wee dance on the side, you know. And I obviously thought it was a great opportunity because those doors are usually pretty shut. I knew that I didn't only have to be honest when I was approaching the women there. I knew I had to share something about me. Because honesty is not all about just being bold and frank. We know that. Honesty got to do with giving something up about yourself. I like to say this as well. I've been talking to people about honesty the whole week. And people are like this. You cannot be honest. And I'm like, why not? And it's like, you'd be like, aye, look at Alex's jumper, look at that color, it's horrific. And I'm just like, hang on, is that honesty? And they're like, yeah, you would just be rude all the time. And I'm like, no, honesty is something else. And this is what I want to show through my projects. Honesty is about vulnerability, and vulnerability is about genuine connections. Honestly, it hasn't got to do with talking about people's jumpers or Jannica's dress is tiny. It got to do with something that you share. So, going back to the bum, she already, her name is Minna, that's her lap dance name. She told me a few weeks before this shoot that she'd been sacked from a strip club. She got sacked from the strip club because she was on her period and the tampon string was hanging out. And this whole thing of being dancing, being sexy, and not bleeding, it's like, my head exploded, because I was like, it's a very kind of twisted view that these women wouldn't have the menstruation. I'm going to be talking a lot about menstruation as well, by the way. Hold on. So she shared that story with me. In the morning before this shoot, I came in and I was like, oh my God, I totally got my menstruation this morning. Here's the sharing part, not just honest, but sharing. And Minna perked up in the dressing room and she was like, me too. So I thought, let's get a nice shot of that you described. And this is the part of honesty. You have to give something up. And when you do, most of the time, people will give you something back. This is not a Machiavellian kind of thought of how you get into a strip club. This is more about, it's more about how you create authentic images. I know this chat is going to sound quite about vulnerability and honesty and emotional and perhaps even spiritual, but it's really, really about how we all create authentic work. I just realized I went straight into my stripper pictures, and I'm going to say something. That was the part 3. My name is Jannica Honey, and I'm Swedish. That's where my accent is from. I don't know if you worked that out already. I moved to Edinburgh in 1998. Alex said that already. And before I carry on, I am actually going to give it a wee break and ask, have we got any photographers in this room? Cool. Designers? Loads? Night owls? Yoo-hoo! And a lot of creatives. I'm saying that because that's how we connect. We find out something about the other. I think the whole thing with honesty is that we need to remove it from the idea that it's like a cold bucket of water over your head. It's not about what we look like or if someone got a big nose. It's about the sharing. And life is all about that, isn't it? The strip club door opened for me, and other doors did too. In 2012, I went to visit 2 different communities. 2 similar communities where identity and belonging was fundamental. It was almost about life and death. And also 2 completely different communities. One based in Glasgow, in Brighton, which is the east end of Glasgow, the Orange Lodge. And the other one on the outskirts of Montreal, a reservation called Kanawake. When I went to see the Orange Lodge, I actually had a youth project in the area. And I kept on walking past the high seat of the Orange Lodge, and I was just, it was something inside me, not just that I wanted to connect with them, but I had to get into that building, because you know this whole thing with secret societies, it just makes me go like, show me how secret they are. I'm sure I can break some of those secrets. I knew when I started to knock on that door that I had to be completely open about me, my beliefs, and I was about to say my religious beliefs. And I was actually, in the sense of they knew pretty sure that I did believe in a God, but it wasn't a God as they thought it was a God. It was a goddess. And that goddess, she's huge and black, right? They knew everything about me. They knew I was a feminist. They knew I was quite perplexed over the idea that you had to be a Rangers supporter to be in the Orange Lodge. The whole thing. And when you have those open connections, and this is the thing is really interesting, I was invited into the high seat. I was on the march, they call it parade, but I went on the march with them, and I was walking at the front, taking pictures, of course. They let me walk at the front because they trusted me, believe it or not. Bear in mind though, with the orange walks, there's only men at the front, the women walk behind, except for this one. After the walk, I felt quite, it was a mixed bunch of feelings, of course, as you can imagine, walking through Glasgow. And I was ready to go home. At that point, all the grandmasters flash. I always think that, I didn't have to say that. But all the grandmasters invited me for lunch. So I was at a high table with these guys, you can just imagine, chatting. And you know what happened when I left? I'm going to say this, I don't agree with the beliefs, and I certainly don't believe in I believe in the activities, but I don't agree with the activities either. But I left with some kind of weird respect for these guys. Obviously not for what they stood for, but as in humans, because their openness with me was immense. I mean, I was asking them about sexes within the lodge, and they were answering, yes, Jannica, now we have to allow women to come in, but some guys are not up for that. That connection is fundamental for humans. When we feel that connection, we feel it, right? Obviously, but we don't just feel it. It feels good too, because connection is going to overrule all kind of ideas. Mohawks. So this is a reservation outside Montreal in Canada. I went over to absolutely not study the Mohawks. I studied anthropology, but that hat, I left that hat in Edinburgh, big style, because I knew I didn't want to go into this domain and be like, let's photograph some Mohawks. Interesting, study the Mohawks. So I had to be really clear about my intentions when I went to see them. And I created, well, I didn't create, it's true. I had an idea about sharing identity and belonging, as in my own identity. This is a peacekeeper, by the way. It's the police. When I entered the reservation, I was talking a lot about being Swedish, but second generation. My dad is from Istanbul and my mom is from Stockholm. So one thing is for sure, I'm a city girl. However, my dad grew up in Turkey, but his dad was Armenian and his mom was Greek. I don't know if you know that, but that kind of creates some problems in Turkey, and he never felt Turkish. However, when he moved to Sweden in the 60s, he was called Bloody Turk, but that's a different talk. I then moved to Edinburgh when I was 22. I'm now 44. That's almost half my life. Does that make me Scottish? Nah, not really. I mean, when I go back to Sweden, I'm like, oh my God, you Swedes, you're so obliging. You don't have to give all the information, all the time. And when I'm here, I'm like, fuck. Honestly, in Sweden, one tap. My identity is, well, I don't even know. That's another talk too. But anyway, as you can see, my identity is quite mixed. And I think that's the thing I brought into the reservation. I wanted to talk about what it meant to be a Mohawk, how they felt, how they identified. My story was the key to open up. My story made them being honest about their story. I wasn't only guided around. Guided sounds like I've been like goose-stepped. I wasn't only taken around by the peacekeeper over the snowy day. The local coke dealer, let's carry on, there you go, showed me all his spots on the second day. He showed me where he was smoking his spliffs during the summer. He showed me where the youth was hanging out. He told me about poverty, studies, all those kind of things that kids go through. He really opened up. In fact, I think actually he opened up a wee bit too much. I kind of thought to myself, God, do you see that what happened? That's what happens when you tell your story. Other stories unfold too. However, I think maybe he felt connected to me because I was telling him about going to after parties with the exploited and partying with them. He was a big punk fan, and I actually think that's where he found his connection. Janine is in the exhibition. This is when the blackbird sings. Has anyone heard about this exhibition? Cool. I had, when the Blackbird Sings, it was showing at Arusha Gallery down at Dundas Street in March this year. I'm using this work, and I'm going to show you that last but not least, because connection and honesty and intentions was absolutely so important for this. The work happened over 12 months. I photographed at every full and new moon, and only at twilight. Women and nature, and women in nature, daughters, mothers and daughters. It actually makes me laugh, but imagine this work without the connection. Imagine this work without me being honest about my journey. Yuck, so bad. So starting off with twilight shoots. Twilight is called the blue hour by the great artists. And I can reassure you, it's like a blue 15 minutes. I was sweating. I used the twilight because it really limited my time. And imagine that. I wanted to limit my time because when time gets limited, we become much more present. If I had hours with these women, included my mum, running around in the woods, try this, get down there, hen, what about this? It just wouldn't translate in the same way. I'm going to add something as well about my mum. She's not one of these Swedish liberated mad women who's just naked in the woods all the time, yeah? She's really shy. She will almost be British as we know it. But so mum, the women who was a part of this was friends, my mother, neighbors, my mum's neighbor, and people that I never met. Why I created this piece of work was because in 2016, I started to feel really scared and disempowered. I think it wasn't just me who felt like that. I done something, please. It wasn't just me who started to feel like that. I think a lot of women and men started to get that feeling. I mean, there was a few different things that happened. And I mean, we all know someone was talking about grabbing them by the pussy, which is not good for anyone. That was one of the things, and I found myself sitting on Facebook having all these like ranty chats. He's a fascist. And I knew I had to remove myself from the online world, go out and do something empowering, I guess. I also had quite a few personal struggles. I was trying to create, I guess, a new generation. Meanwhile, the older one, my gran, passed away. When the Blackbird Sings started on a super new moon in October 2016, that's when I had, now I'm going to talk about menstruation again, guys. That's when I had my first menstruation after my second IVF. And I tell you one thing, it wasn't so much fun. But I just knew that I had to strengthen myself after that long journey. And to strengthen myself, I had to strengthen women around me. Guys, I get you next year. This is all about the ladies. I knew that to carry on, to be able to, it was supposed to sound quite dramatic there, to be alive, that's not the thing. But anyway, I just knew that I wouldn't be giving birth to a baby, so I had to give birth to something else. And in some kind of form, creativity is giving birth to things all the time, isn't it? I ended up giving birth to a huge blackbird. Took a while, a lot of women, over 30 women actually, 30 women I photographed over a whole year. I didn't miss a single new full moon. How are we for time?
I lost track.
Oh really? Okay, I'm just going to carry on. What I wanted to say about this, which is really important, what I tried to show you with all the projects, is we need to be honest if we want to create authentic and genuine and real images. All humans can feel that. Never mind just the photography, it's any kind of creation needs to come from that place. I mean, obviously with this talk, It's not one of those how to be happy talks, you know. It's not one of these talks like, let go, you know, just be vulnerable. I mean, it's actually really about how you create good photography. I'd like to add this too, that obviously I'm not honest all the time. Honestly, I'm not present all the time. We couldn't be, because you go mad. It's not going to kill you if you're being a wee bit dishonest. We all are. I think what's really important to stress here is that dishonesty actually shuts that inner door. I'm talking about creatives now. And when that inner door shuts, then outer doors will shut too. If I wasn't being honest in my approach to the Mohawks, the Orange Lodge, and the lap dancers, even these women, then those doors would never ever open. Or they will open and they just look horrific. It would be like bad photography, okay? If that inner door is shut, just hold on to the key. Don't lose the key. Because that key is your key to real creativity. And real creativity can always give birth to something new. Thanks.